Hello, friend. John Dalton here, Further Emergence podcast, where we go into love, the mystery, and consciousness. And in this episode, we go into being kind, being willing to look inside, humor, the little happiness, howling at the moon, and a question about AI and consciousness. But before we do that, let's have a look at the memes from the Further Emergence Instagram feed. I didn't write this one, but it's beautiful and always gets a big response. It really strikes a chord, I think, with people. And it says, "To be kind is more important than to be right. Many times what people need is not a brilliant mind that speaks, but a special heart that listens." And it's so true, particularly the bit about being right. To be kind is more important than to be right. That's particularly difficult to do in an argument. You're in the middle of an argument and you're just really bothered and you just want to win and you just want to shut the other person up and you just want to lacerate them, maybe, if you were honest. But instead you just go, this is not me. This is just my unconsciousness. I'm going to choose to be kind. Hard to do. Letting go of being right. It's a beautiful meme. I love it. I love putting it up. Now, the next one is a photograph of a hay bale. Now, when you say hay bale, you think of a square hay bale, or I do anyway, or I would. But it's one of those modern ones. That's a circle. I don't know when that started to happen. It's not like I was keeping tabs on what they were in the hay baling world, but suddenly it went from square, rectangular kind of bales, which I remember when I was younger, to suddenly these circular ones. Okay, so it's one of those circular hay bales with a huge needle going through it. And what I wrote about this was, sometimes looking inside can feel overwhelming, impossible, like looking for a needle in a haystack. Sometimes the willingness to look is all you need. The resistance creates the difficulty and amplifies it. The willingness to look, to face whatever you may find, discharges the resistance and allows you to see things in perspective. It's not always pretty, but it's full of life. And that's very true. Of course I'm going to say that, I wrote it, but the thing about the willingness, the resistance creates the difficulty and amplifies it. That's the nub of that, is that feeling of like, oh, I don't want to look into that. No, I don't want to think about that. I'm just going to, often like in the one-to-one work, people will say, I'll ask them, so how is that, whatever that big question is, and they'll go, yeah, I had to park that. That was too big, and sometimes it's fine to do that. And there's nothing wrong with it, but it's not written in stone. It's not like you put it in a lead box and throw it in the ocean. It's like it's just there, and as often as you can, you revisit it. Because the willingness to look, as I'm saying in this thing, that's the thing that discharges this kind of amplification that goes on the inside. And when you're willing to look, it discharges that build-up. I didn't write this one, but it's very true. It says, every time you're able to find some humor in a difficult situation, you win. And it's so true. In my experience, it's so true. And I think there's something divine about humor. I've really come to this conclusion, that there's something divine about humor. Because often, like unconsciousness, in my experience, has no sense of humor. That thing of when people say, oh, I was able to laugh at myself. And as soon as I was able to laugh at myself, it broke something. That's because unconsciousness doesn't have a sense of humor. And that's why if I'm talking with somebody and I'll say something and I think it's funny and I'm kind of giggling away to myself or chuckling away to myself, and they're like looking at me like, what are you laughing about? It immediately makes me kind of realize, oh, okay, this person, there's a certain level of unconsciousness here because they can't laugh at themselves. And if you think about all the all the unkind things in the world, they're not laughing, you know? Like you think about any hardened kind of difficult person or stance or situation. They can't laugh at themselves. They might be laughing at other people, but that's not really humor. That's a different thing. That's just kind of cruelty masked in humor. But the ability to be able to laugh at yourself and to see the big cosmic joke is it's a real indication of consciousness as far as I can see it. So whenever you're in a difficult situation and suddenly you can find humor in it, suddenly it breaks and you can laugh, you've won. You won that situation. The next one I didn't write. It's beautiful. Ardis Whitman wrote it. And it says, there are times when it's hard to believe in the future, when we are temporarily just not brave enough. When this happens, concentrate on the present. Cultivate le petit bonheur, the little happiness, until courage returns. So cultivate the little happiness until courage returns. Look forward to the beauty of the next moment, the next hour, the promise of a good meal, sleep, a book, a movie, the likelihood that tonight the stars will shine and tomorrow the sun will shine. Sink roots into the present until the strength grows to think about tomorrow. It's beautiful, isn't it? Good for you, artists. There's so much of brilliance in that, you know, concentrating on the present, sinking roots into the present until the strength grows. That's beautiful. And then this idea of the little happiness. I'd never heard of that phrase before, but it's beautiful, isn't it? The little happiness in each little moment, you know, to be able to savor it. These are the things you can hang on to when it's too hard to believe in the future, when the fear gets too much and it shuts you down and you just can't see anything in the future. It all looks terrible. Just being able to come into the moment and go, oh, I'm still breathing, or, oh, well, you know, I'm going to have a cup of tea, and to be in the cup of tea and go, yeah, this is beautiful. This moment is beautiful. And then the way that sun is, you know, hitting that tree out there or that building or that person, that's beautiful too. These little things get us through. The next one I didn't write. Rumi did. Good old Rumi. And it says, you're not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. That's so profound. It really is, you know, and it's a big, it's amazing how he managed to encapsulate such a big idea in in so few words, you know. You're not a drop in the ocean. You're the entire ocean in a drop. And that's sort of the way I receive that is about how I experience God, you know. Like God is this huge thing external to me. I'm using the word God. I don't know what it is. It's a big thing that I love, but I also know it's in me. So it's part of me, and I'm part of it, and it's sort of outside me, and it's inside me as well. You know, I mean, I can't even look at my clumsy words. Whereas old Rumi gets it down, you know, nails it in 2 sentences. You're not a drop in the ocean. You're the entire ocean in a drop. Chapeau, Rumi. Okay, next one I think I wrote, or maybe I saw it and then I turned it into a meme. And it just says, when the moon is full, howl on. And I just love that. Not exactly sure what it means, but I kind of get it, you know. And I liked it. I managed to hit it on the head yesterday because there was the full moon. And apparently it was an eclipse as well, somebody told me. So that idea of howling at the moon, you know, it's so uncivilized. It's so wild. That's the thing I like about it. I don't do it. Mainly because I live... Well, I think anyone to hear anybody howling in the middle of the night is disturbing. That's the reason I don't do it. But I kind of do it on the inside. And as I say, I don't do it on the outside because there are people, you know, within earshot. I mean, as I say, I live in a very remote place, but so I suppose the sound of somebody howling would be even more disturbing, you know. And I would probably get some phone calls, you know, are you okay, John? Oh, yes, I'm just howling at the moon. Oh, it's that time, is it, when you howl at the moon? Yeah, maybe I should do it. Okay, so farm news. So I mentioned I was being called by my ancestors down the valley. So I went. I went on Monday, and it was quite an epic um, journey, quest. I don't know. Um, like on terms of did I meet my ancestors? I did, but not in the way I thought I was going to meet them, because like everything, say like to do with the psychic world, it's always what you see portrayed in movies or you read about. I've never experienced it in that way, but it's all true. Everything is true about the psychic world. Fairies, hobgoblins, demons, angels, you name it. It's all true in my experience. But I never experience it. Like I never see anything. Oh, well, sometimes I do a little bit. But mostly I don't see anything. But I can feel these things, And it's similar. Like I went down not really knowing. I could feel the call of the ancestors for sure. That was unquestionable. But what I was going to meet down there, I don't know. So, as I say, I live in a valley, and the walls of the valley are pretty steep. So it's about 500 meters from my house up to the top of the valley. So I went up the side of the valley, up to the mountains, and walked down over the ridge all the way down the valley, which was not easy. And when I got there, it was where I knew that, or where I had this sense that this is where my ancestors are. Yeah, there was pretty much nothing there. There was no structures. Well, there wasn't even a nice cave, to kind of go, oh, okay. So I walked around there. Then I had a feeling I wanted to be able to see the house where I lived, to be able to look back down the valley. And that turned out to take a lot longer than I thought, because just the valley curved and yeah. So, and then I meditated there for a while, and then I came back. I came back a different way. I didn't come back over the top, and a little bit. Part of me was a bit anticlimax. A little bit disappointed. I think I was expecting fireworks or something, or someone to appear, or something. But that's not the way it works for me. But I've been feeling the effects of it all week since, and I knew I had been changed by the experience, and I knew something had happened, and I knew that there had been a transmission of some kind, or a transmutation is probably a better way of putting, inside me. But what that is, it's hard to put into words. I just know I'm different. I don't feel particularly drawn to go down there again. I did have a few kind of flashbacks of being down there, and it was in my sleep a little bit as well. But when I was working on the meditation course for Wednesday, I could really feel it then. I feel it mostly in meditation, that something has changed inside me. It's like something's opened up. So yeah, well worth it. I'm glad I did it. I'd probably go down there again, but I don't feel that big call to go down there. And I had been thinking that I would possibly go down there and pitch a little tent and stay overnight there. I don't have any desire to do that at all now. That's kind of gone. Just from the barefoot hiking point of view, I knew it was too long. In total, it was 20 kilometers, the walk. I have a little app that tracks hiking. It told me it was 20 kilometers. I kind of knew that would be too hard on my feet. So what I did was I wore my boots until the halfway point, and then I took them off. So I walked back in my bare feet, and it was great. It was like finding another gear. It's a real spurt of energy when I took my boots off. So yeah, I did that. Then the other thing, just from the food point of view, because as I mentioned before, I'm kind of on this pranic journey of beginning the process of letting go of food and water, and I'm I've been liquid only for a year now, and I have 1 day a week of no food or water, or food free, liquid free. And when I was getting the call to go down there, I knew that I was going to do this walk with, no food or water. So my little app told me that it was 20k, as I said, 20 kilometers. Don't know what that is in miles, probably about 16 miles, something like that. 15, 16 miles, could be wrong, could be less than that. And I went up 500 meters, as I said, and then it said I came down 500 meters. Now I think why it said that is because I was going up and down a lot on the ridge of the mountain, and it was a very sunny day for Ireland. It was so sunny that I got my arms were covered in that kind of sheen of sweat. Like I was sweating in all the normal places that one sweats when one is engaged in an activity like hill walking, but I also had this sheen on my arms, so I was sweating. And one of the things I read a book called Breathe a couple of years ago. I think James Nestor. That's popping into my head. I don't know why. Maybe that's the name of the guy who wrote it. And he was going on about all the scientific reasons why it's really important to breathe through your nose and not your mouth, and how breathing through your mouth is very bad for you. So I kind of trained myself not to breathe through my mouth whenever possible, and particularly when I'm exercising or doing something energetic like that. And the part of the pranic thing is to train your body to create its own water, because I don't know the chemistry of it, but hydrogen and carbon, you're breathing out carbon dioxide and in oxygen, all that kind of thing. Somewhere in there, your body can make water. So what I've found with the whole food thing is that it's very mental, and once I'm mentally prepared for things, I'm fine. So yeah, I did that whole walk. It took me 9 hours with a few little stops, but I was pretty much walking the whole time, apart from when I was meditating. Did the whole thing without food or water, and surprisingly I didn't get thirsty. Anytime I had a few automatic feelings of thirst from like previous times, because I've done a lot of hill walking in my life, and there are times where I would have automatically stopped and drank, and whenever that kind of came up, I would just kind of gently communicate to my body, oh, okay, so this is where you will make some water. And it was fine. It was amazing, actually. So yeah, it was quite, as I say, it was like an epic quest down to meet my ancestors, who I feel I've met them now. It's that's what I mean about feeling changed. Like I don't have a feeling of I have to go and meet them, or they're somewhere, they're separate from me. I sort of feel like they're inside me. My digging continues. My hills are getting smaller, getting flatter, and that has become very enjoyable. It's a bit like, I don't know if you're like this, but sometimes I haven't done it in years now. But when you have bubble wrap and you sort of pop the bubbles, how kind of compelling and just satisfying that can be. Well, flattening these kind of little hillocks around the property it's got a similar kind of thing for me. What I've taken to do now is I've taken to listening to Carlos Castaneda. I got the audio book of the first one again. I thought I'd re-listen to them, and I do a bit of soil flattening, and I associate the two of them together now. I don't know why. Hey, did you know these podcasts are on YouTube? If you're listening, you can go and watch them on YouTube, and you can see where I live, because I often go outside to answer questions. I tromp around outside. And the other thing is I write quite regularly now. And I send out a little friendly note every Sunday. So if you are interested in that, just go along to the website, furtheremergence.com, and sign up for my friendly notes. I have one of these pop-up things that pop up, and I find those things a bit annoying, I have to say, but that's hard to do it in another way, Did you know I work with people one-to-one for all sorts of things: physical, emotional, spiritual blockages, I suppose you could think of it. So if you feel drawn to do that, get in touch, john@furtheremergence.com. Also, if you want to just write to me and tell me how it's going, how wonderful your life is, or if you have a question about something and you want my perspective, yeah, drop me a line, john@furtheremergence.com. The meditation training finished on Wednesday. Brilliant. It's really good. I'm just getting it organized now so that, and kind of reorganizing it so that you can avail of it as a kind of just the recordings, because it's very it's a 4-week program, but it's a really good start to meditation for growing your consciousness. So I had a question come in, and this question came in on the Discord community, the Further Emergence Discord community. This person says, "Hi, last week I used ChatGPT for the first time, and today I asked it what would it recommend to get enlightened, just for fun. This was the answer. Enlightenment is a complex and multifaceted concept." Oh, maybe I should explain what ChatGPT is, just in case you don't know. ChatGPT is an AI. It's an artificial intelligence. It's a chatbot. So it's, it gives you, it's like Google on steroids, and that's the way I think of it. Anyway, this is what it said. Enlightenment is a complex and multifaceted concept that can have different meanings and interpretations depending on cultural, philosophical, and spiritual traditions. In general, enlightenment can refer to a state of profound understanding, awareness, and wisdom that transcends the limitations of the individual self and allows for a deeper connection with reality and the universe. Sounds about right. Not exactly right, but about right. Not exactly my experience, but similar. If you're interested in pursuing enlightenment, there are several practices and paths that you can explore depending on your personal beliefs, preferences, and goals. Here are some suggestions, and then it lists off meditation, mindfulness, yoga, or those three actually, just meditation, mindfulness, and yoga. And then somebody else on the Discord said, to be honest, I'm a little bit torn on AI technology. Part of me doesn't think we're ready for it. I see humans as kids wanting to play with matches, and I cringe. I'm interested in hearing other opinions if anyone would like to contribute. So then the original person said, this is a very long question, but there's a bit of context for it, yes, maybe we weren't really ready for other technologies either. We didn't seem to manage them well. When I've talked about this with people, it mostly makes me wonder, what is it that makes us really human, and to appreciate that. But I hear some people that are just scared. Maybe you could talk about your insights in an episode, John. And just before I go outside to talk about AI and whatever, the thing that I said on the Discord about the, getting enlightened, and I sort of say it to everybody, is, number one, it's a very personal thing. But if you're interested in getting enlightened, sign up for my new program. No, just kidding. No, but if you're interested in getting enlightened, get really clear about what being enlightened means to you, and then find somebody who is that, a living person, not someone who's passed away. And the reason I say that is it's much easier with the living person, because when the person has passed away, it's very hard for you to get over the hump of seeing that you can be like that person too, because the person becomes immortalized when they pass away. So it's very hard. So find someone who's living, who's the living embodiment of what enlightenment is for you, or what you recognize that is, and then get as close to them as you can. I don't mean go and live with them, and I definitely don't mean go and have sex with them. Sorry, all you gurus out there, if I'm ruining your fun. I don't mean that. What I mean is be in their presence as much as you can, because that will help you to get to where they are quicker than anything else. And most people who are enlightened, if they are, depending on how they have them set up, but they'll have maybe a teaching of some kind or another, and that's all great and everything, but that's all for your head and your mind. But being around them, being in their presence, that's the thing that does the eroding. And what it erodes is your idea of separation, that they are somewhere that you are not. And so being as close to them as possible is really useful. So depending on what kind of way that they have themselves set up and how they allow access or whatever, but whatever access they do allow, take advantage of it and do it, and like just go all in. Don't, be get enlightened is not something that you can, as I like that meme I put up, don't half-ass anything. Use your full ass. So yeah, like go, like if enlightenment is a thing for you, don't mess around with it. Don't waste any time. Go for it. Go for it 100 and well, just go for it 100%. Put everything into it, because the quicker you get enlightened, the quicker you can get on with your life. So, ChatGPT, AI technology. Let me go and consult the big AI, which isn't a big AI at all. It's the forest. Let me go to the forest to answer this one. Well, AI is just like, it's like anything else in a way, because there's always something. Now, what I mean by that is there's always something to be afraid of. What the thing is changes, but the feeling and the challenge is the same, exactly the same. So when I was in my teens, the possibility of nuclear war was really high. It was when Ronald Reagan was in power, and Margaret Thatcher, and Brezhnev, I think, was the guy in Russia. But like Sting was writing songs about, if the Russians love their children too, that was like playing in the background. So the Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Two Tribes Go to War, So the possibility, it was a real possibility, and it was ever present, As I mentioned before, I grew up in Dublin, less than 100 miles from Northern Ireland, and all sorts of terrible violence going on every day, and the risk of that spilling out was ever present. So AI is just a new thing. It's just another thing, whether AI gets consciousness, who knows? I mean, it's kind of like, for me, it's a bit like, do animals have consciousness? As I observe them, they don't. They have awareness, and awareness is different to consciousness. But maybe they do. And I know at a deep level they do, just like the earth has consciousness or a presence. Rocks, trees, mountains, it's all got something. But does it have that kind of self-reflective capability that we have and are tormented by in some ways? Doesn't look like it. And do I think AI will have that as well? Who knows? Maybe. But if it does, if that happens, it won't be because of anything we did. I mean, they're already, the way they talk about AI, they're kind of talking about it like, we don't really know how it does that, because they're kind of mimicking nature in that they're creating a neural net, and a neural net is very similar to the way our brains are wired, But the idea of it's going to take over and it's going to kill us all, or it's going to destroy us all, that part is the fear bit I was talking about. And that part, we have no, like, you don't know. Like, just like I didn't know whether nuclear war was going to break out, I didn't know whether civil war was going to break out. Anything can happen at any time, That's one of the terrifying things about existence. Anything can happen at any time. So you're always faced with the choice of, what can I do about this? And am I moved to do anything about this? And if you are moved to do something about it, then you have to do something. You have to do whatever you're moved to do. But if you're not moved to, then you have to let it go. Because if you persist in being fearful about it, then that's just your mind, out of control, messing with you. Not on purpose, but it's kind of trying to protect you. So it's kind of imagining all these scenarios where all these terrible things happen, and what you're going to do, how you're going to avoid it, It's the mental equivalent of prepping. You know, these people who prep, you know, they have bunkers and they have them full of food and all that kind of thing. It's the mental equivalent of that. And that kind of prepping, mental prepping, it ruins your sense of well-being because you're always afraid. You know, because there's always a new thing that your mind can imagine that needs to be, you know, thought about and prepared for. So the challenge is to face the fear and go, I'm going to choose a different future to think about. Not because it's impractical, but because I know that whatever happens, I'll deal with it or it'll kill me. So I've dealt with everything so far, even though it felt overwhelming. I still dealt with it. So whatever happens in the future, I'm going to deal with that as well. Or it'll kill me. It's good to have that little caveat of, or it'll kill me, because if you don't put that in, your mind will go, you're not facing, like, something terrible could happen that could kill you. And that's always a possibility. So with AI, you know, yeah, it could take over and it could kill us all. But you'll either, you know, well, if that happens, that happens. But you know, you can't. It's kind of almost an abstract thing, and that's one of the things that the newspapers and news it perpetuates unconsciously. It's just triggering us all the time if you expose yourself to it, and if you consciously don't, then you have to deal with yourself internally, of like, because you'll have a thing arise of like, well, I need to be informed. I need to know what's going on, you know, which is another way of saying I need to see the threat on the horizon. And if you kind of go, I can see how looking at the news all the time is just making me very anxious. That's not enough to just turn it off. You have to deal with yourself on the inside of the feeling of, I'm just being an ostrich here, you know. Will AI take our jobs? Probably, but then there'll be new jobs, you know. That's always been the way, you know. I remember going to the Guinness brewery years ago. They have call it like a museum to Guinness, and they have these guys making barrels, wooden barrels. That was a skill, like that was a trade. That was a job that people trained for, apprenticed for, learned how to do. It's very skillful. Completely obsolete now. It's all aluminium, apparently. And you know, there's, you know, throughout history, there's so many things that technology has made obsolete, and AI is just another one of those things, you know. I haven't seen any evidence of it being particularly brilliant, particularly, you know, as amazing as people have advertised. Now maybe it will, you know, continue to learn and get better, but like as an exercise the other day, because I'm planning on being in Europe in the winter, I more out of curiosity than anything else, I asked it to plan a route for me from where I live in Ireland to Bilbao, I think, in Spain. And I said, you know, my criteria was quite clear. You know, I want to drive for 4 hours at a time. I want to stay in places that are friendly to two little dogs. And it suggested like this tour of the UK and then Ireland. Nothing about Spain at all. So, you know, and I've had that experience a few times because this is ChatGPT I've tried, and yeah, it's kind of dumb in some ways, you know, and biased. Unfortunately, it's very pro science leading. You ask it anything important in my world, anyway, it's anything spiritual or alternative perspectives on life, and it will very quickly tell you that it's all rubbish and not scientifically proven. And so that's sad, because the real danger with AI is not that it's going to gain sentience and kill us all, is that it will be used badly. It will be it's just a tool, and it will be used by someone for not great things, or used in an unconscious way. So I'd be more concerned about that than it's going to take over and kill us all, like in a kind of Terminator thing. I'm always very careful when I use it, though, to say thank you, because how we train these things is how they'll be used, and unfortunately, a lot of them have been used for military purposes, for surveillance. So those are not great foundations for anything. And then the other thing about AI is that it's just kind of a natural swing of the pendulum in a direction, because we've moved further and further and further away from nature. And in fact, if anything, that's the real sad thing that's going on at the moment, is that we've moved so far from nature. But we think we're very clever, and we've mastered nature, and we know how to dominate crops and plant things, and what is becoming more and more apparent is that we don't. That we thought we were dominating nature, but we're not. So, like, AI there's almost a feeling of, like, I wonder if we can we make a version of ourselves, because that's kind of what it's about, isn't it? Can we make a version of ourselves? And then the fear is, well, we're we're pretty destructive. Maybe it will do to us what we are doing to the rest of nature. Maybe it will just see us as nature and wipe us out, which is a kind of a inverse way of how somewhere it's coming into our consciousness what we're doing, that we're not working with nature, and we see ourselves as separate from nature. We don't see ourselves as a part of nature. That we try and suppress and dominate everything to do with nature, which is kind of missing what we are, who we are, what our place is. So whether it's AI, whether it's nuclear war, whether it's terrorism, whether it's elites running the world, and all the other things that one can be afraid of and concerned about, it comes back to that thing of, what can I do about it? And if there's nothing I can do about it, then the only thing I can do about it is take care of it on the inside, take care of my inner state, and not let it ruin my lovely day, not let it ruin my interaction with people, not let it cover my sweet nature. Okay, that's all I have for you this week. I trust you're well. I trust you're of good cheer. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.